Yang Berhormat Dato' Nasrun, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols are deemed observed. Very pleased to be here. I know the MC made a pitch about him coming from Sabah and also our guest on coming from Sabah. I'm from Batu Pahat. Can I have a show of hands of anyone from Batu Pahat? You mean I'm alone here? Okay, for those of you who know Batu Pahat, it's actually also a very palm oil town. And I used to grow up around rubber trees, which then became palm oil plantations all around us. And during my free time in the afternoon, I used to help the family to, transfer the small seedling, tear out the poly bags and put them into the big plastic bags that will grow out and then be sent to the plantation. So yeah, you can consider me to be someone who has been in touch with palm oil. So glad to be here. For those of you who don't know the NKEA or the National Key Economic Areas, especially our friends from abroad, it's basically one of the 12 key focus economic sectors in this country. And in fact, it is one of the most important one. It has huge contribution to the GNI, the jobs, and the investment that we hope to bring to the country from the point when we kick off, which was 2011 to 2020. The NKEA actually covers the whole spectrum of the value chain of the palm oil, from upstream, where we focus on enhancing productivity, to midstream, where we look at the environmental issue, particularly on the release of greenhouse gases from the mills, and also the downstream, which is a very important part of this, extending the value chain and deepening the value. And we've been working on this for the past 6 years. I'd like to acknowledge our partner in crime from MPOB. I think Dr. Chu is there. She was with us working on this up to her retirement earlier this year. And then we have Dr. Kushai, who have taken over the mantle, and also the rest of the MPOB staff who has been working with us on this. But basically, the NKEA, as you can see, covers everything from the upstream, midstream to the downstream. Now, I just want to go into every part of the NKEA. We have the entry point projects, and basically this is a focus area within the sector. For EPP1, the task has been to replant at that point the 365,000 hectares of palm oil that were above age, or rather above 25 years old. And I think in the last 5 years, the combination has been about 469,000 hectares has been replanted or new planted. Basically, the program incorporates both clearing the backlog by the private plantations as well as independent smallholders and organized smallholders. The MPOB and our effort was focused primarily on the independent smallholders. We trust that the private plantations are capable of replanting, and they have not let us down, although I think there's a lot more room for us to replant. Our overage palm population is probably still around the 5 to 6% of the total hectarage. But I think good effort and good progress has been made so far. In terms of the FFB yield, this is where we come into some challenges. It hasn't moved all that much. In fact, this year, because of the environment, or rather the weather, we will probably drop below the annual production forecast, because as of August of this year, we only came in at about 10 tons rather per hectare per year. What have we done so far? I think we have done a couple of things. We've leveraged on MPOB's extension offices to teach and guide the smallholders on the adaptation of best practices. So that program has spread in terms of its reach. The other major thing that we have done is the formation of cooperatives, and to date we have 33,000. Let me see whether it's in the next slide. To date, we have 33 cooperatives that has been established, of which about 25 of them has been operationalized. We are providing them with the support to help them to trade in FFB. In fact, MPOB worked together with Bank Agro to provide credit lines to all of these cooperatives to enable them to trade and also to pay the independent smallholders in cash, so that we are able to compete with the other traders out there. So this covers about 3,924 smallholders and about 15,200 hectareages to date. The membership of each of the cooperative on the average about 120, and there are about 460 hectares per cooperative. And it looks small, but we do have cooperatives that are very, very large in terms of hectares. Now, one of the other things that we did was we introduced the Sure Sawit kit, which is to ensure that we do not have the non-Tenera genomes in our plantations. And this is a new program that has just been introduced under the RMK 11. The target this year is to test 150,000 seedlings. We have completed about half of them, and we are due to complete the rest of them for the rest of the year. In terms of certification, of course, that's been one of the mainstay of what we have been doing so far. Initially, it's been very much focused on the COGAP, but now with the introduction of MSPO, you can see that we are gradually also certifying the independent smallholders on the MSPO as well. EPP3, the third area, focused on maintaining an optimum level of foreign labor in this country. In fact, the target back then in 2010 was to reduce it by about 100,000. And again, this is an extremely difficult task to do because the level of mechanization is not at the optimal level in this country. So currently we have two schemes, and this is where we hope that more of the plantations will step forward to take advantage of the incentives that are being provided by the government. OPMIS, for example, is an incentive where grants are provided to reduce the price of machineries in order to encourage estates and plantations to own machines, especially for FFB harvesting and evacuation activities. This will help to increase worker productivity and perhaps move our worker to land ratio, which is currently standing at about 1 worker to 9 hectares thereabout. And this is a ratio that we need to move because we are not going to get a lot more foreign labor from our neighboring countries as their wages over there goes up. 4.5 million has been allocated for the year 2016 to 2020, basically the entire RMK 11. We had many engagement, there are a lot of interest, but there are still a lot of the funds that await to be tapped. So to the plantation and estate owners out there, please check the MPOB website to see how you can leverage this. On the other hand, we have also organized the International Competition on Palm Mechanism. We are now in the second edition. In the first edition, we had 69 entries. In the second edition, which we are undergoing currently, we have 104 submissions. No winners has been determined at the last edition, but for this edition is still ongoing. The idea here is to try to unearth greenfield solutions to mechanization in the farms. And we complement that this year with the formation of MICPO, which is Mechanization and Innovation Committee on Palm Oil, where we work directly with plantations, the major plantations in this country, including Sarawak, where we want to source for innovation in the use of mechanized solutions, either locally or abroad, or in another crop that could be adapted for use in palm. So this is the greenfield approach. So we complement the greenfield approach with the brownfield approach. And the idea here there is to look for the solution, adapt them locally, send them out, create a prototype, send them out into the estates to run the pilot tests, and if they are proven successful, to be rolled out to the rest of the industries for adaptation. So there is a lot more that we need to do on mechanization, and I feel that we need to move faster, and we can only move faster also if the private sector step forward to help us in this endeavor. And so this is where we hope that with MICPO is a new way of doing an engagement with the private sector. We've seen some encouraging submissions to date, and we hope to see more, and we encourage and we hope for more private participation in this program. EPP4, the fourth item, is about the oil extraction rate. I think we had some initial success in moving it to around the 20.5%, but it has also remained quite stagnated, and we need a new way forward. Part of the program also includes, again, certification, and we see now more of the MSPO certification coming on with good practices. There should be good oil extraction rate as well. And the MPOB has also been enforcing zero tolerance on unripe FFB via officer placement on the low OER mills. Right? And again, this is where we need the private sector to collaborate with us as well. We have been rather successful in terms of bringing down the unripe percentages from 5 to 6% and to the current about 2%. But the underripe fruits has remained at about 15 to 16%. And that's another area that we will have to tackle. Biogas is under EPP 5. This has also not been an easy journey because when we started, there was only a singular way of doing this, which is you trap the methane, you flare it, or you generate electricity and send them to the grid. So to date, we have completed 89 mills, 5 more under construction and another 145 more under planning. What is interesting is that you can see that for the FIT, the megawatt quota has increased from 10 megawatts per year to 43 megawatts in 2005 and this year to 50 megawatts. And the uptake has been a lot stronger. The reason being that the palm oil mills can avail themselves to the FIT rate. At the basic level, you will get roughly about 32 cents per kilowatt hour for mills up to 4 megawatts production, which is the majority of the mills in this country. But what has moved the quota or the uptake of the FIT in this country is the fact that we've managed to secure the additional 8 cents or so, the bonus rate for use of landfill sewage gas and agricultural waste. Prior to 2015, palm oil waste was not considered as agricultural waste under the definition by SEDA. So we managed to persuade SEDA to provide the additional 8 cents per kilowatt hour, which means that your basic comes up to 40 cents, and you can still avail yourself to the additional 2 cents if your efficiency is above 40%. So you get a rate of between 40 to 42 cents per kilowatt hour, and that's the reason why you see that the allocation has in fact increased, and in fact the uptake is very, very good. What I understand is that the quota that's provided for 2017 and 2018, the majority of them has also been taken up. But having the FIT alone isn't sufficient. So a couple of years back, we provided a pilot grant to Felda Sungai Tenggiri, and they piloted a bio-CNG plant that is able to deliver up to 80,000 metric square of bio-CNG for the use of industry. Now, why is this important? The FIT only works if you are within the vicinity of an injection point for electricity to the national grid, and the injection point can take the power that you generate. If you don't fulfill either one of those conditions, then it either becomes too costly or is simply technically not feasible for us to do. So this will help us to unlock those biogas that are locked because they cannot be connected to the grid. So all you need to do is, it's kind of like a virtual pipeline where you truck them out and send them to industry. In Sungai Tenggiri's case, their gas will be taken out by Oriental Metal Industry in Serenda, which is the maker of alloy rims. So this is the first, and we believe there will be more that will be coming to help us unlock the potential of biogas. Now, to help the mills to accelerate the process of getting connected to the grid, which is the first solution, we have bucketed the mills into several buckets to determine how feasible are they to get connected to the FIT. And also, we've decided that we have identified at the moment 8 mills that will undergo pre-PSS study or power supplies, pre-power supply solution checking. So these 8 mills will undergo the pre-PSS, and this is paid by the NKEA. We have identified a further 89 mills that are within 5-kilometer radius, can produce up to about 2 megawatts, and are in the vicinity of substations that are able to take injection. So we will encourage those mills which MPOB has reached out to step up and work with us to see whether we could also enroll them in the pre-PSS program. And again, this will be the initial pre-PSS will be paid by the government. EPP 6 is one of the two EPPs in the downstream area where we have put a lot of emphasis. EPP 6 focuses on high-value oleoderivatives and bio-based chemicals, where grants are provided to companies that invest in those projects that produce the following product lists: glycerol derivatives, surfactants, biopolyols, biolubricants, agrochemical, and other bio-based chemicals. To date, we have a total of 15 projects, of which 9 have been completed. 1 is going through commissioning, and 5 other projects are currently underway. The investment commitment to date by the private sector is to the tune of 2.1 billion ringgit, of which more than half, or rather about 60%, have actually been realized. And for that, the government has provided the grant of up to 311 million, of which about 44% has already been drawn down. Now, there are still funds awaiting to be tapped. Under RMK 11, there is another 100 million that will be provided. So you folks out there that are looking to expand your capacity or looking to invest in a new facility to produce the high value added oleoderivatives or other bio-based chemicals, we also encourage you to step forward and talk to MPOB. Now, this is quite interesting. We decided to do a check on how well the oleoderivatives exports are doing, aided, of course, by the NKEA grants. And what we found was between 2008 and 2015, the CAGR growth for oleoderivatives product has grown by 9.2%, which is about 2.5 times, or rather, in fact, 3.5 times the pace of the basic oleochemical growth. So it goes to show that the oleoderivatives market has grown very nicely. And if you look at the revenue on an average blended per ton basis, you can see that it has also grown by about 1.7% versus basic oleochemicals that has actually declined by 1.4%. This is not surprising in the face of more capacity coming on for basic oleochemicals. So quite clearly, the strategic direction is correct. But what we need is for more private investment to step up and to help us move further down the value chain, and also to help the Malaysian industry to be a lot more competitive. EPP 8 is the second of the two downstream that we focus tremendously on, and this is where we like to help grow the food and health-based product. In total, we have about 8 projects, of which 2 have been completed, and the rest are going through commissioning, ongoing. In fact, we have 2 new projects that are at the agreement stage. The total investment commitment is 789 million. The realization has been a little bit slow. There are 1 or 2 projects that are behind schedule, and the grants committed is 76 million, of which about 45 has been drawn down. So those projects that has moved and near completion, we have allowed them to draw down the grants quite materially. And in fact, and the second part of EPP 8 is to create future demand, which is to invest in various clinical trials around the world. We have trials currently running, 13 trials in total. They are running in United States, United Kingdom. We've completed 1 in South Africa. We are going to embark on 1 in India, and also in Malaysia and Australia, working with top names in the food and health sectors, such as CSIRO, Roy Marsden in London, the Harvard Medical School in the United States. This is a very important exercise because as you go into nutraceutical, I allude to what Dato' Lee was saying about the new emerging nutraceutical segment. This is to help us create the possible new demands for nutraceuticals in the future. So we are making an investment today that we hope will generate the demand for tomorrow. Now, under the RMK 10, we have another 100 million that's allocated for the large commercialization of food and health-based product. We are obviously talking to a number of parties to draw down on this. Also, for the first time, we have 30 million for clinical trials. So if you have any clinical trials proposal, we would be happy to hear them. But also for the first time, we have 50 million that's allocated to SME. And the idea here is not for the SME to produce the ingredients, but rather for the SMEs to use the ingredients and then market those products as higher value-add products. So, for example, the use of red palm olein in confectionery product will be one such example that will be value-added. We have taken the steps to promote, in total, the 280 million that is allocated under RMK 11 through newspaper articles, radio, the MPOB website, and also other media. Tan Sri Lee Hian is here. Some of you may have caught his blurb on BFM radio. Thank you, Tan Sri, for helping us with this. But there are still funds out there that are waiting to be tapped, and we hope that the private sector will step forward and help us to further accelerate the downstream expansion of the industry. Just want to say a couple of things about the way forward. Obviously, the supply side of the business is extremely important. We continue to fret about productivity, about the yields, struggling to come out. But at the end of the day, if you have a good production and the market demand doesn't match the production, we would have a problem with price because demand will be lower than production. So if you look at it, these are the top 5 markets in the world for Malaysian palm oils, right? Obviously, India and China figures very highly. Then there's EU and, of course, America and Pakistan. And our industry has, to some degrees, been very successful in integrating themselves in some of this market, particularly in Europe, where we are represented by IOI and KLK. In the US, we're represented in part by SIMW through Emory. And in some ways, you can see that as a result of the integration, which means that you're involved in the value chain of the export countries through manufacturing presence as well as distribution network, it helps in terms of the overall palm oil export. I think that's not disputable. But what are we doing in places that holds still a lot of potential for us? China is one such market. And again, KLK, IOI, and SIMW are all in there. We have our challenges in terms of China. The numbers have been going down. But if you look at the market potential in terms of the vegetable oil total consumption and the per capita consumption, there remains room for us to grow. Even despite the fact that China, with the one child, one family policy, may not be as strong as a future market as India is, but nonetheless, the demographics still present a huge potential for Malaysian exporters. India, recently they have reduced the PPO tariff from, I believe was 17.5% or 20% to 15%. But the potential of India is tremendous. We have good growth in India. And again, if you look at the consumption of vegetable oil and the per capita food intake, there remains much more growth. And demographic-wise, India is a larger market, potentially a larger market for us compared to China. What have we done about it? I think with China, we are beginning some talks, but nothing has been sort of bedded down. But in India, we have taken the first step. 1 or 2 months ago, the Malaysian Biodiesel Association has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Andhra Pradesh Economic Development Board with the agreement of initially exporting biodiesel to India as part of the proposed B5 program, and later on for investment potentially in Andhra Pradesh to fulfill some of the biodiesel production gap there. So this is a concrete way in which the government is working with the private sector to help push some of the exports, initially with biodiesel, but obviously in the future we could also look at the use of PPOs and CPO in the Indian market itself to help push the Malaysian exports in India. If you look at the biodiesel potential on a very broad-based basis, India has an installed capacity currently of about 0.6 million tons per year. And should they proceed with the B5 implementation, we're looking at a capacity that requires 2.37 million tons a year. That leaves us with the 1.7 million tons as the opportunity. And that is a very, very big opportunity, considering that a lot of our biodiesel refineries are operating at suboptimal utilization. So as a first step, there is an export opportunity, and later on, there is opportunity for us to integrate further into the Indian market, not just in biodiesel, but also in other food and fats. Finally, I think the MENA market is also growing, that is another market that we need to pay attention to. And again, the consumption in terms of vegetable oil is an area that beholds potential for us. At the moment, obviously the markets where we have some penetration are above the Sahara and also in the Saudi area. I just came back from Oman a couple of days ago, and there's a lot of opportunity in this area as well, where they could penetrate the MENA market. And so these are the three markets that we need to pay a lot of attention to: China, India, and the MENA region. And we need to work on this demand, because without working on the demand, if we have a bumper supply that will come in at any point in time, then we will have a problem in matching the demand and supply. So just some stats in terms of where we are, and clearly you can see that there is room for growth in India, in China still, on the per capita consumption for oils and fats, taking into consideration the food use per capita, which is relatively low at this point in time. And that's quite clear when you compare them to the United States, right, which is relatively mature. So with that, I'd like to close the presentation. I hope you have gained some useful information, not just in terms of what we are doing in the NKEA, but some thoughts in terms of what we can do to further the export potential of Malaysia in the international market. And with that, I thank you.